But thanks everyone for coming along. Adam's got a bit of a sore throat, so I'm going to be the one up here talking and introducing everyone today. But no, thanks all for coming, and thanks to Kirsty for coming down here. We've been trying to get her to come here and present for quite some time, so it's been nice to be able to get it all sorted out, which is awesome. And with that, I'm just going to shut up and hand over.
It's been a good year. We've been trying to line this up, I think, with me coming in, and it was never quite lining up with any of the user group, and eventually I went, I'm here. Do you want to just run one? Let's just see how we go. Just put it in there. So I actually run, in terms of who am I, apart from the fact that I'm Kirsty, I actually say that I'm a Microsoft 365 adoption specialist, because if I say I'm an adoption specialist, I think I'm going to hand a small child at you. It's just like, they either really like that or they run screaming. It's one or the other. I personally just run screaming.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's it. In terms of some of the stuff that we're going to go through, and now, of course, the clicker now doesn't even want to work, whereas we were having some issues with it earlier in terms of the screen. Looks a bit like it's locked up. Righto. So I am a Microsoft MVP, which if you're dealing with these guys, hopefully you will know that means we've been awarded a most valued professional. There aren't very many of us that are actually adoption specialists in the world. It's a fairly new category in some respects over the last, I suppose, 80 months or 2 years that they've finally started to look at what does it mean to be outside the technical space and supporting those in the industry. I also run the Australian Microsoft 365 adoption user group. So I run both Sydney and Melbourne. I've been doing those now for around about 2.5 years and present if I happen to be in the other cities, or support them if they need some support. So I've been doing that for some time, which is really good, because we'll be trying to get together the collective to help and understand what does it mean to actually go on that user journey and to not leave your users behind. We roll out all this sort of technology. This is what I do in my spare time. So if you want to talk to me about anything that's not Microsoft or adoption, I tend to play with cakes, as you can see, in terms of decoration. So this is trying to shut my head down, because there's so much going on. There's so much happening in the Microsoft and the Office 365 space. Constant trying to keep your knowledge up to date, and the reading that we have to do to keep ourselves up to date can be so very overwhelming that even as a specialist, and the fact that I have to go into the user group every single month and actually tell people what's new, even then I can't get across it all. And I'm the one advising, and I do the trainer for the industry. So the vast proportion of the trainers right around Australia, I actually train. So my company, On Point Solutions, is an adoption company. So adoption meaning that, what does it mean in terms of end to end? It's right from all the strategy and the change and the comms and the training and the measurements and all that analysis. There's a lot that goes into adoption. So that's how I kind of do my head. Now, ultimately, when we're going along this journey, users have got to be really comfortable, with the fact that they're going to have change coming along the line. They've got to know what's going to happen to them, and they really need to understand how it's going to affect their role. Because this is the very first thing. The moment you even mention the word, we're going to have some really cool changes. We're going on a digital transformation. That is out there as a buzzword. You've already got anxiety hits immediately, whether we like it or not. Okay. So what happens is I get a lot of phone calls, not just from around Australia, but from around the world. So I had PayPal call me not that long ago from the US, and they kind of go, we've seen your wheel online, we'd like a bit of advice in regards to. So what they do, and every time I get the help button, this whole song starts to go off in my head, how you cannot do that. Okay, when they ask for the help, it's usually around a couple of different scenarios. One, they've rolled it out. These are the products. It might be we've just rolled out mail. And usually we've had mail. We've had it there for 2, 3, 4 years. We now want to start on the journey to Office 365. We're paying for all these licenses. We want to do something with it. Yay. I'd see with a lot of partners in the industry, in terms of the technology partners or clients, that they're not actually promoting or going in or going back to clients and going, what can we do next on the journey? And if you're trying to reinvigorate Office 365 and the usage, it's a perfect opportunity when something new comes out, by the way. So the rollouts technology, it wasn't actually focused at all on change. So people aren't using it. They just roll it out as, it's the standard technology, features-based, we're really cool, off and going, and they go, no one's touched it. On average, you've got a less than 14% usage on Office 365, because you think about it, when you're going on a journey to the cloud, if I said to you, you're going to Google, your whole organisation would freak out, because it will often be very different number one. Two, it's all cloud-based, cloud first. Everything is cloud first. But if I say I'm going to roll out, you're going to have Office 365, they just think they're getting the latest version of Office. They don't think about going to the cloud. You might be going, you're getting the latest version of Windows, you're getting the latest version of Office. Woohoo, we know that, we're okay. So they're not going to do anything different. You've got to take them on a cloud journey. So then the rollout has technical issues and limited usage. Now, where I was this morning in terms of doing training, I went in and did a program this morning. They've got all these technical issues going on. Now, I was the last line of defence when it came to training. If they step into my room and they were having technical issues, I'm done. I'm fried, because the vast portion of the training was fixing something that was technological in terms of a problem. They're confused now because they think, am I supposed to do that every time I go in? I'm not sure. Where do I click now? Hang on, I've just clicked on 5 different things, so I have to go back over things, and then our training gets blown out. Or you go and customise it and then shut down things like external sharing. You shut it all down. And then they go, we can't use it. This is crap. It's broken. Microsoft shit. Excuse the language. But this is what I have them in the room. I have trained over 180,000 people. Okay? I have worked with the vast proportion of the Fortune 500s. And I can guarantee you start customising a whole heap of stuff and you turn all these things off, then what's going to happen is you're going to break the user experience, and it's usually the corporation's fault, a lot less than it will ever be Microsoft's fault. Yes, there will be some little technical things that were Microsoft and they need to be ironed out. Yeah, sure. There's definitely all of that. And there are some glitches, and no, it doesn't have everything that you always need, but that's what the user voice is there for. But if you've got something that's kind of a bit broken and you have not done a good pilot and usage and testing, and then not done that and left some gap, a decent gap between it to fix it. I see these pilots and they go, and then we're going to get ready to go live in 2 weeks. I get booked to do the training, and in 2 weeks, we go like a week or and a half or 2 weeks out, what happens? We need to cancel. There's all these problems. Or they just go ahead, we just need to go. We've got a date, the senior leadership is expecting it, and it's not ready, and the users are going, hey, it's not working. And you wonder why you don't have someone using it. Then I get the whole, we did everything right, except no one's using it. I go, really? Okay, let's work our way through it. Do you know what is the number one thing that has brought everything to a screeching halt of the we did everything right? What do you think might the accept would be? Any ideas of what the accept might be?
Training.
That's a big one, but there's one that comes before the training.
Endorsement by leadership. Yeah.
It's the leadership. They have not come on board. They are not excited. They are not dragging or towing the line or being in there and part of that change piece. And if they're not part of that change piece and they're not driving it, then you have pretty much got a solution that just starts to go backwards more and more and more. Because we think about Office 365, in terms of that journey, you're telling them to go in and to be able to do something like collaborate and communicate really well. Now, I don't like classing it as the little guy, but the little guy is not going to turn around how the team collaborates and communicates. So then people aren't going to use it. They're going to fall back to the old way because the senior leader asked you to get this or don't do that or here and we're not doing that. Shut your laptop down in the meeting. And why do you think we got that? To be transparent in meetings if you're taking your OneNote. So simple, open your screen out. You want to show people how to engage in technology in a room? Then use some of the simple features that are actually there so they're not closing a laptop and they're not. Okay, stuff like that. Or they're just getting started. Now, that's often a long journey. They think that they're going to just switch it on and get ready to go. It is really easy to turn that technology on. It's a subscription. You're up and running. But then there's a lot of data and things that need to come over in the back end. So all of a sudden, it's a year later. They say we're going to be ready to go in about 7-8 weeks. And I go, okay, I know. And a year later, they're ready to go kind of thing, because there's a lot of things, especially in SharePoint and data and migrating servers over and so they start this message really early around what we're going to do, which is good. But then what does it look like as a cadence to bring the users on that journey along the way? So they're going down the road of the journey. Now, they think about the technology they're rolling out then and there, such as OneDrive or SharePoint. They have not planned themselves for the next 2 years minimum of what it looks like to build themselves over that technology as an ongoing piece. So when we look at all those scenarios, and we've got to understand the why of what we're going to do it. Usually they're going, we bought it because it's going to save us a whole heap of money on exchange. Yay, you just don't give crying about your technology. As far as they're concerned, you need to keep your job, so therefore you're going to go and find the latest thing to throw at us. We were doing our job perfectly well, thanks very much, go away. That's what happens. Okay, so you've got to have a really good vision. If you don't have a vision around where you're going to go, you just say digital transformation, that's a big buzzword. It's a great word, sure, but what does it actually mean for your organisation? What does it mean to go on a cultural journey? Because that's what this technology is. Technology, it's down the line, it goes people, process, then technology. You can choose any technology you want, but what does it mean for the people? The people are the ones that are going to do whatever process that needs to be put in place. Really cool. This is a great process we want to reinvigorate, and what kind of technology we're going to do it with. So if you're going to roll out these solutions, you've got to start with the people. Then you're going to go, what's in it for me? The with them. But the with them is a little bit more than just the me. You have to think about what's in it for me, what's in it for us as a team, what's in it for the company, and what's in it for us and the clients. Think bigger than just the with them. You've got to have a look at all those components to be able to go on that journey of the with them. Then we have our aha moment. That's my favourite bit, when people's face just light up and they get it. You know, they go, oh, that's really cool. They just go, oh, I'm so excited. And I love to see how we can revolutionise the way someone works by saving them a phenomenal amount of time by doing something simple. But that aha moment, who's ever bought that electrical whatever device at home and it's sitting in the cupboard and you've got it in a box and you've never used it? Anyone? Just hands up, come on. The vast portion of the room, when this is the sort of thing that we do. We purchase something, we think it was really cool, we liked what they did with that dicer and slicer on the, but you really didn't have a reason. What was your strategy around why you were going to use it? What was in it ultimately for you? It might have been for someone else, but really they weren't there to go, oh, that was really cool and I could use that. So, you know, we've got to have our aha moment, but it's got to be in alignment with all three. And then there's the reinforced piece. So the reinforcing it, so it just goes and it keeps going. So I see a lot of projects that do the whole, we've brought you in, adoption, whatever, for the next 3 months, yay, we'll do a 2-month program, and then it goes dead in the water. I'll train up change champions, or I'll do something and try and leave a legacy of who's going to do this long after I've gone, because this doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop. So when we have a look at my wheel of fortune, it gets called by everyone, infographic on Office 365. Has anyone seen the infographic? No? So I built this, geez, and it's had like 14 iterations, I think, in about 18 months, if that, in terms of Microsoft 365. This is the Office 365 E3 license. I've got a Microsoft 365 one as well. So when I built this, it was because I was going into workshops with senior leaders and trainers, and I'm trying to show them all the various components, because what happens is people actually think that up the top here, that this is not wanting to do quite what I want it to today. So Office is all they're upgrading to. They're getting a new version of Office. Woohoo! How exciting. Okay. So I say, what is Office 365? Number one, they don't even know what the cloud is, the vast portion of the people. I have about 11% of my room, I've done research on it. So you're trying to take your users on a journey to the cloud, how very exciting. They're going, I don't even like my pictures going there. I don't know where to find them anymore. I'm not putting my files there. I'll never find them again. Okay, so you've got to start from some of the basics. And if we're going to the cloud and you're telling me I can work anywhere, anytime, does it mean I've got to work from home? I don't want things on my mobile phone. Is it going to cost me? How do you've got a lot of work in terms of the change, so it inherently comes with a level of anxiety along it. So when we start to look at all this technology, we break it down. Okay, so I might start from here and then go, and we're just today focusing on OneDrive. OneDrive, me drive, SharePoint, we drive. Yeah, keep it simple, me, we. So we start to then go down this journey. Now, Teams, for example, is that pane of glass that sits over all of this, plus the rest of the cloud and the world. So trying to help them to just roll out Teams, and they don't even know how to use their OneDrive or their SharePoint or OneNote or Planner or Skype, and then you're going to throw Teams over the top and you go, we're going to go with Teams. And they kind of go, oh, now you've just bought a whole heap of inefficiencies and put something over the top of it. Come from some of the ground up. You've got to give some fundamentals in terms of the Teams journey. So this is the Microsoft one. So it will then include sort of all the Azure and the Windows side of it as well, if you haven't dealt with it. And then this is how I kind of focus it down and help them to understand, go bigger picture and then bring them down. Because what will happen is they go, oh, we don't want to put that in front of them because it's going to freak them out. And I go, the moment they click and go, office.com, corporate ID, password, what comes up? Absolutely, it's all there. And they kind of go, ooh, I might break that. And they think things like delve is something technical, it's for the IT team, I shouldn't touch that. Okay. They often don't get, I say they need to get very PC, be persistent and curious. Okay. So ultimately, when we have a look about that people side of things, it's not the organisations that are doing the change, it's the people that are doing the change. It's the people that, and we don't necessarily say that people are changing, they're not. The process of how you do something is the thing that's often changing, and the people are taking it on that journey. They have to go through, and change is just, it's always constant. Helping them to understand that this is an evergreen environment is really important, that things will shift and change on them, and to give them a level of understanding. Give it a comparison to, you've got your mobile phone, the apps are always updating, things will move and change. You've got very used to that environment to kind of go, because the moment you say, oh, this is going to always be changing, they're not used to their desktop environment changing. It takes a good 3 years in the past for something to roll out and be new. And you're going to say there are updates every single month? You know, I've had something like 30 updates that came through in the last month for Office 365. You tell them that, they're going to go, okay. So we've got to help them understand the change. They will naturally and inherently resist change. Anything that's different, it's like a building. You walk in and you've got all your tools, and I come in tomorrow and I swap out every single tool, hammer, jackhammer, everything you know about. The whole building is going to come to a screeching halt while they sit there and go, where's the button on that one? Oh, here it is, right, jackhammer. Oh, that's a lot stronger than the last one. Hang on a second, too big. Where's the old one? Yeah? So it's no different. And then you have to understand people are different. The way that we come at it is quite different. The way we learn is different. You have to provide a variety of things. So in terms of the why, when we get into the why, we have to have that very clear and specific goal. So it will make a difference. So, for example, when we start to have a look at some of the goals of Office 365 and we want to be specific about what it is, align it to the vision for an organisation as well. Usually you've got what's the vision for the next year or 2 years around technology. How was this as a technology going to align to the change of an organisation? If you're trying to culturally adapt and change, I'm working at the moment with an organisation that has to be very, very innovative. They create all sorts of household products. They've got to be, there's so much in that market, they've got to be very competitive, very, very innovative. So their thing is how to be innovative. How do we help our organisation to be innovative? So with Office 365, you then need to come up with a tagline that actually supports what it means to be innovative as this, and be a little specific. So if you said, we are going to, it could be, say you're rolling out Teams. And so with Teams, we want to save ourselves a minimum of 5 hours every single week by collaborating well as an organisation. We would like to reduce our footprint in travel by, 10% over the next 2 years. We want to do this. We want to do that. We have a vision. We want to go green. We're going to go make sure that we use, you can put in OneNote. We're going to reduce down our paper wastage. We're going to promote this to the community. I work with a lot of councils. I've worked with like 9, I think I'm on my 10th council, something at the moment. Paper wastage and that, and having it in your annual reports or things that you're doing, things that people can relate to as a part of your vision. Because then you've got a common goal that you're working towards for the client, for the organisation, and for them as an individual to be a responsible corporate citizen. Okay, so think about that. Aligning the culture to the vision. This is a really big one, especially when it comes to senior leadership. I know, the better culture. Oh, come on, join us.
Tragic 80s.
It is, isn't it? I'm an 80s girl, so, but you talk about culture. So we think about culture. Something as simple as, and I see it all the time, working from home. Who has a working from home policy for their business? Think so? Not sure? Never seen it? Don't know? Yeah, okay. So I see a lot of organisations that often don't have a working from home policy. But it's not just that. Who working from home, and no senior leaders who do not approve it, as far as they're concerned, they're not working unless they're sitting in front of them. Anyone know anyone like that? Okay, so you talk about a cultural journey, and you want them to come on this digital journey of being able to work anywhere, anytime, anywhere, any device. If you do not bring your culture on that journey, you've just then wiped out the working on the go. Okay, so you've got to go, do we need to do change fundamentals with our senior leader? Because working on the go is about trust and communication. And if you haven't got those two things, you need to start working very heavily on your culture to go on that journey. Okay? You're talking about behavioural shifts and changes. You're going to go, we're going to be able to support you if you've got sick kids at home. What does it mean? What is the management policies around it? What's your corporate policies around doing all of these things? You just need to start aligning a lot more than just your IT. Okay? You have to think about all of that. So we've got our culture to the vision. So I see so many that just go, we're never going to be able to do that as far as our boss is concerned. We don't do anything unless we're sitting right there. And I just go, well, okay. And I get it in the classrooms all the time. I can't. I'm not allowed to. In fact, if I have a day off sick with my kids, and it's an age-old argument, but it's something to think about. So the top contributors to success is the active and visible sponsorship. I see a lot where they go, we've got a sponsor, it's really awesome, and I deal with them once and once only, and that is it. They'll then send an email out for the organisation. Okay, they send out, here's the message of what's going on. They'll do 2 or 3 of those. They need to be visible. They need to be active. They need to be spruiking. They need to be ambassadors. They need to help you with decision making. We've got to coach them. We've got to bring them on the journey. We've got to make sure they understand. It's not enough to be a sponsor. It is also not recommended to be IT. How many Office 365 has their active executive sponsorship is coming from the IT leader? Why would I say that?
Because we're all nerds.
Well, we think about it from a teacher's perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, you think IT is very much about making sure the support is there, the technology is right, the things are turned on, it's working. Are they taking you on a cultural journey? They're becoming that way. They're having to do change management course. They're having to do all these other skill sets. But, you get really good active, visible participation from a HR manager, a marketing, or a comms, or the business operations, or you get those guys as really active, visible, and they are in that team meeting. They're talking about how they turned around the whole sales team to do something different in the business. Then you're going to start getting some awesome messages and some awesome movement. Okay, because as far as everyone is concerned, they don't care about the email that's coming out from the IT leader. Hard to say, but it's true. You get the CEO sending the emails out, you're going to get much better traction than the IT or a generic, kills me, the generic email address that gets sent up for a project, and they're the ones sending out the notifications that no one is looking at. Don't do it. They will ignore it. You have a good structured change approach, dedicated change resources. So if you have a project and it's going to be $1 million, how much should you actually spend on change management for your $1 million IT project? Any ideas?
10%.
That's pretty common. Less. Usually they're spending anywhere from about 50 to 70,000. Do you know how much it should be? Half of it. You think about change and culture and training and change managers coming in, analysts actually looking at this, making sure they got the right way of working, process re-engineering. You think about all that, it is big money to actually go, it is now not, because it might have cost you in the past 22 million for a big organisation instead of $1 million, okay? And that was very different. Now it's shifted because it's about the people and not about the light up of a licence anymore. Yeah, so it's shifted in its balance a lot. You have to take that into consideration. So then there's a whole heap of others in terms of success. Obstacles, the lack of that sponsorship, very much so, change management, employee or manager resistance, all sorts of things, a lack of buy-in from teams. Okay, then senior leaders, we go from, they're in, we go and get some real shift happening. You get those senior leaders in, you start to see some movement. And I do see it goes really well if you can get them on board. So when I got asked to do Australia Post, not that long ago, they said, can you come in and train 14,500 people? And I went, no. I said, but what I will do is I'll come in and I'll work with all 600 of your senior leaders. And when I bring them in, I am going to show them a new way of working and what they need to take ownership. What's the security? What's the protection side of things? How are we going? How does it align to the vision of the business, the strategy? And then what I want you to do is book a session and bring your team in. Because I want to teach you as a team a new way to collaborate and communicate. Because if I run generic sessions, people are just funneling in and out. 2 or 3 have got it. 5 of them didn't. They knew how to do a new way. Those ones don't. They couldn't do the process for the team. They couldn't align it to the new team meeting or how they do it. They couldn't actually, as a team, work on something to move forward. You get better traction when you do it that way. So then I set them up for success in a program and change managers, change champions and ambassadors and specialists, and I did train the trainer and walked away and went, now you can do the remaining 14,000 people in the organisation. You've got to set them up for success, okay? So then let's look at the next piece. So we have our what's in it for me. Projects, 80% fail, not because of the poor deployment planning. There's lots of really awesome solutions that are rolled out. Who's ever seen it where no one's actually using the technology at all? Who's got old legacy systems they've seen and there's 5 people in an organisation, 1,000 that are actually using that, and it might cost a fortune to reinvigorate, or a CRM or a something, and you didn't bring them on the journey. Okay, happens all the time. So this particular scenario that I have here, when we look at scenario building in the what's in it for me, we have a look at who are the personas in an organisation. We have to understand who the people are, because if we don't know who the people are, we're not going to be able to go into those teams and go, we need to help you to understand a new way of working as a process. We have had a look, we've done some investigations, we've done interviews with people, we've talked with them, we did some surveys, we work out a new way of working. So this one here was one, and I do a lot of study and research and analysis around this. So we went in, it was something really simple. I was working with an executive assistant. I said, what is your biggest pain all day, every day, drives you crazy? You got to think about that for that little person as such. She's not. She's executive. She was like, scary. Okay. So anyway, she went, nightmare. I have a report to do every single fortnight. It has to go out. It takes a day and a half of my time because it goes from one senior leader to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. He's going on leave. They're emailing back. I need it now. We've got to do it, you know, in terms of working with a document. She said, I eventually got to the point where it's like, here's the blank template. Send it back to me. She becomes the queen of cut, paste, and format. Yeah. Okay. So we taught them as a team how to collaborate by sending a link. That link could be OneDrive or it could be SharePoint, whichever, the we. And they started to work at the time. They didn't have SharePoint rolled out. So we did a OneDrive link, worked on the one document code, collaborating in real time. Now, we saved a day a fortnight in terms of the work. That is 26 days in the year. That is a lot of time on one document report every single fortnight. Okay. So therefore, the cost of one document a fortnight, and we just averaged out the income for the business because we weren't going to use hers. We averaged it out as what it was actually costing her to produce that report every fortnight. That's one document. You think about all the inefficiencies. I had too many organisations say to me, we don't care about productivity. We've got so much more that's actually going on in the business. We're swapping out the CRM and we're doing this and we're changing that and we're moving offices and we're going here and we're going there and this is happening and that's happening. Productivity is not important to us. Really? If I could save you on one document, 8,000, how many people have you got in the organisation? Oh, you've got 300. 300 by 8,000 potentially in terms of the reports for just one document. Do you think you want to save that? Is that worth it for productivity? So you want to fight and argue for dollars around change or training, come up with a good scenario, equate it to the dollars it can save you in your business and fight for it. You've got to want it. You've got to be hungry enough to go and change people's opinions of the journey that they're going on with some of the scenarios. So then we have those aha moments. Now, in terms of the aha moments, it's not sometimes easy to find the aha moment. But first, you've got to understand the people, do some good personas. Personas are not about trying to map every single person in the organisation. They're trying to come up with, you know, what does it mean to be out on the road and a sales or a field worker or whatever it is? What does it mean for them to have a good scenario? For the scenario to get that aha moment, it was for a locomotive organisation, and they're dealing with train tracks and all sorts of stuff. It was the workers out in the field got all these things that are messy and grass is growing over and pebbles here and that's a bit broken and that's not, they're kind of writing it, trying to capture it. Instead, they're using OneNote and just going along, go, snap, we need to fix that tomorrow. Snap, that needs to be done on the next team. Snap, that needs to be done on the next team. They need to do this, they need to do that. The next team comes in, it's all listed out. Qantas were doing the same in terms of engineering. I work with Mathau Botasau at Qantas sub-programs there, where it was the engineers and how do they easily transfer the things that were needing to be done, some of the simple stuff from the next shift to the next shift to get a good scenario, okay? So those then led to an aha moment because they go, I can use that. That actually makes sense. Okay, so you've got to tie it back to the way that they work. I get so much of a training, I don't have time. Hence why I say, do it as a team. Because if I just run a whole heap of generic sessions, then people aren't going to turn up. The other thing I see is they run training and they go, it's 2 weeks after the technology, they've been dealing and playing with it already. They're not going to come into a session that, anyone might run. 2 minus 2+ days of anything rolling out is the max you can go. Max. I'm handing over technology. Some of the most successful programs, I've been running a program now for 18 months with the Department of Education for New South Wales. Been the most successful on record and for Microsoft. We can't have it out there as a public case study as such, but they get their new Surface device. The moment they get their Surface device, they have an hour and a half of building it, they walk straight into a 2-hour training session with my trainers. Okay. They immediately get the hands-on, they haven't got the fear around it, they work through it, any little technical glitches, we've got IT support in the room to make sure they're ready to go when they walk to their desk. We are getting 100% satisfaction results and people using it in the organisation, 100%. Okay. That is unique. So it can be done. Don't think it can't be done. Okay. You've just got to align it up correctly. And that whole we are too busy. So we've got other organisations that are starting to make it mandatory to go through it. This is your work all day, every day. We are wanting to swap out all our systems. We want you to go to Teams. We don't want to be doing lots of travel. It's going to cost us too much money. It is worth us doing something mandatory. It is kind of coming back around. Everyone likes to do the softly, but you've also got to do a bit of the carrot, a bit of the stick. If you want to make something softly, tie it in. If they've got to learn and they've got to do Teams, you get your headset when you walk in to that meeting. That training, then you get given your headset when you join us. Kind of gives them a bit of how to force them to come in if you need to. Okay. So in terms of, is it training or is it education? Education goes higher. We always talk about sort of the training side of things. Often it's not timely, I do the plus minus, ineffective, unappealing, difficult to find. They had no idea where to go afterwards. They weren't helped or they didn't read the email because email isn't also necessarily always the way to go. Do you need to have some posters around, digital signage? Make sure they know senior leaders. Who is the very first person that we usually go to if we're in a team meeting? What are you going to do? You're going to go to immediately your line manager when something's going wrong, or you can't get it done, or your job, or they're the ones that have got to be in the know. You've got to help them and get the message to them so that they can help the employees and know where to go if they need to. Okay, so with those senior leaders. Too much of it, not enough of it. Now, if I do 1-hour sessions, can guarantee you a survey result will always come back with too much, too quick, should be longer. Yet, you do it longer, too long, yeah? It was too long, and it's always, you can't win, and you will never win, so always take that into account on any survey that you do. Sometimes there can be a bit of a sweet spot. I say 2 hours. And then be careful, because then what I see is we haven't done training before, so they try and jam in as much as they potentially can. In that 2 hours, we finally got them, woohoo. Okay, no, you're just going to overwhelm your users with a whole heap of new information. So the training needs to be designed. It is a project unto itself. I see a lot around training. They have not actually planned it out well. You need a minimum 2 weeks notice to be kicking off training, not the whole, we're running training, we're sending an invite out and it's a week beforehand. You are not going to get into people's diaries a week beforehand. You don't think about the administration and the rooms and the bookings and so it falls over when it hits the training. Or we're just going to do seminar. Now, if I was upgrading you to Windows and 2016 as the new technology, you've used 2013 for the last 3 years, you're pretty comfy, I can do a seminar on what's new in Office 2016. But if I want you to start doing something like freak out and put your documents into OneDrive and it's syncing to the cloud, and hang on a second, but I don't know where the cloud is, and I don't know if, well, I'm going to copy those instead of cut them in there because I'm a little nervous about that. But I'm still backing everything up to my 1 terabyte hard drive that I take to and from on the bus with me home, because this is what I deal with all the time. And I go, okay, they go, oh no, I need to still back it up. And then, so you take them then on that journey. If you're not getting the right messaging, you have got some security around it. Oh, we're going to leave those shared drives still open for the next year for people to be able to still get their documents off of. Then those shared drives, they will fall back to old habits within 3 months. They might get excited at first, but if you don't reiterate and you don't reinforce, and they didn't get buy-in, and you left things like that open, they will save it there, shared drive, hard drive, OneDrive, desktop. They've got it in their email because they attached it there, and then they sent it over, and then it's sent back, so they've got it twice in their email. So actually it's 4 times. You've got 4 of them generated. Plus they saved it over here a couple of times and back again. In fact, you send it to 5 people and then back again. Okay. So you think about our work processes. So we've got to try and help them. If you leave that shared drive open, they will go back to it. Turn it to read only. It's only by exception for whatever reason. You've got to turn the crap off. Really. I know we can't, it is there, and if you want to move forward, we've got to take away, we call it the teddy bear. Okay. I don't know if you've ever read, there's a book out, it's actually about the teddy bear. When we're kids, we get given a teddy bear, it helps us to feel comfort and safe, and you take the teddy bear away from the child, they're going to absolutely freak out unless you can swap it for something else that's of value that they're going to feel comfortable with. And as adults, we still have all our teddy bears. We do, we just naturally, it's in human nature to have our comfort zones. So if we are swapping it out, we've got to make sure that we're actually doing it kindly, because we're talking about change. Change is a fear. It's negotiation, okay? It's all about understanding where does change and the anxiety come from. So we don't want to overwhelm them. So a study in terms of training. So Dr. Nitin Parajabi, he is a regional director. So I'm an MVP, he sits way above us, okay? Now, as a regional director, he's done lots of research as well. And he found that 1 day of training for 90 users actually saved the organisation over 21,000 hours in productivity. It is worth it. Okay. So then have a look then at the next piece. To do the reinforce, have a really good change champion program. And I mean a really good. And it's not enough to have them rolled out and trained, and not just the 2-hour training like you might have done for those guys. They need a day of training, and they need a day of training not just in the technology. They actually need 2 days of all the technology. They need to see the vision of what you're trying to do from here to 2 years' time. They are the ones you want to bring on that journey. They're the ones that've got to be excited. And do not go to your senior leaders and say, we would like you to nominate from the team who would be a really good change champion. What happens?
Short straw.
Yes. Who doesn't have the worst workload at the moment? Okay. So they will go, oh, they're okay. They're pretty tech savvy, but you need someone that's the technical enthusiast that's excited. Look at the key influencers. If you've got someone that isn't overly tech savvy, but are pretty good, but they're a really big key influencer, bring them on the journey as a potential change champion. Doesn't always necessarily work. You have to go, they've got to still be excited. Okay, you've got to have them with a level of knowledge. They are the yes people in an organisation. They're the ones that you go to when you go, how do you do this? And they go, oh, it's just that. Oh, I don't know, let's have a look. Okay, they're not, they're curious. So that whole find your curiosity in the organisation, you find them, you get good chance. If you've already rolled out Office 365, you've got reports in the back end. Go and find out from those reports who just jumped in there like that. They probably used Office 365 before. The moment you said, we're rolling out Office 365, they've probably gone straight online, office.com, plug in. Oh, I'm in. Oh, OneDrive. And they're off and running because they know it. They've dealt with it before. Go find them. Okay, bring them on the Change Champion journey. Okay, invite people in, and not just invite them then. When you go and do the training, invite them then again and again and again. Going, anyone in the room really excited about this? Would you like to come on the journey? Would you like to join the Ambassadors program this long after the Change Champions? And it's not enough to just have that Change Champions in terms of the nomination. Where's your reward and recognition for them? I see it all the time. I did one program, the Toyota financer had never given anything to staff ever, and I went, you are on this particular instance, and it is going to be something that's, you know, decent. So they actually got, they got a lanyard that they actually wore so people could recognise them if they needed help or support as part of the program. And at the end, to say thank you, one, they got a certificate. It got put on their L&D that they were actually a champ. It goes on your resume. How cool is that, that you're actually an innovator inside an organisation? So tell them they can have this. They then got a personal email, thank you, from the CEO for being, because you think about what they do for an organisation. They save you bringing in lots of money to do it for you for the next year, 2, 3 years as they support the program. Because they're constantly learning. They will be there, bring them back together every single month. And at the end of that program, they all got taken on a lunch. That lunch for those 30 people only cost the organisation, how much do you think, 30 people for a lunch? It was about 2.5 for a really nice lunch for them. 2,500 to save you on a potentially hundreds of thousands of dollar program. It is worth it. It's worth spending the money, and you know what? They will never forget it. Okay. So really look after them. Now, it's not enough, bring them back again. Someone has to take ownership of them. How do you keep their knowledge up every single month? Bring them back in, keep joining them together. And you can do a letter of commitment to go, I agree to be a change or an ambassador or something for the organisation. I'm signing up for this long, you know, it might be a year, you can do a contract with them. I know when I've got permission from my senior leader to come to a meeting every single month to keep my knowledge up, I will be there for the organisation to help and support. Create a team for them in Microsoft Teams or something where they can communicate and talk with each other. Make themselves known that they're change champions in the organisation to be a face of that technology. That's how you keep your programs alive. So they are ultimately the ones that are going to save your help desk, because those phone calls that are going to hit your help desk will be extreme if you haven't got good programs and training and a good change program, because these guys become your on-the-floor help desk. They are worth spending the money and energy and time on and constant support. Okay. So extensive and ongoing communication in so many form factors, because everyone has a different way that they like to communicate, from interpretive dance right through. So we might need posters on the wall and things that people can physically see. We may need something that's tactile in terms of learning. We learn in different ways. You might need, in terms of communication, it comes through your senior leaders, as I said, digital whiteboards, emails. Not everyone reads emails. And they go slip through the crack, but we're so used to, yeah, sure, send it. Intranet sites, communication through there. Find all the different ways if you do town halls. And a really good one is you've got your innovation kind of day, where if you've got a foyer, you can do setup with your technology. This is what's coming. This is really exciting. Let's show you what to do. We did one recently, Department of Education. We had Krispy Kremes for every single session. It was way too much Krispy Kremes in my world. Okay, but a really good draw card, popcorn. The smell of popcorn brings people through all that air conditioning. I smell popcorn. Get a popcorn machine in. Doesn't cost very much to hire it for a couple of hours or a day or even a couple of days if you're going to run it. It's a really good draw card. Or you can have all the desks of all the technology, have a card that you can stamp, and the moment you get all around all 5 desks or whatever it happens to be you've set up, you get a free coffee from the coffee machine when you walk up and you go get your coffee if you go around and you join all the sessions. So there's lots of ways to be able to communicate. There are heaps, so many. There's big long lists of all the ways that you can communicate on these programs. Okay. To reinforce that life back in again. So new technology comes out. If you haven't seen particularly brilliant uptake of OneDrive, Teams is coming. Go back and revisit OneDrive as part of Teams to make sure, because you'll find that within a couple of years, so they say on average within 4 years, you've done a minimum 50% turnover of most organisations. So if you've got all new staff and you have churn at all going on, then you need to reinvigorate this. What is your orientation program? How do they learn? I see poor IT do the whole, we've got like 30 minutes to try and update them on everything in the line of business and Office 365 as a part of their first day of work. It's usually just hitting their laptop. How do you plug it in? Make sure the profile's up and running. Can you log in? Can you log in? Can you log in? Bye. and then they have no idea how to use the technology. Get a good orientation program. Have a compulsory, it might be e-learning or videos, and these are the 5 videos you need to make sure that you've watched and kind of ticked off on how to get started on Office 365, how to use your OneDrive. There's lots of really cool stuff that you can use, and Microsoft have got some brilliant libraries around all of that too. So in terms of the Teams piece, how are we going for time? That's not too bad. So in terms of the Teams part, I'm going to roll out Teams. We talked about the fact that it's the overarching, and then I'm going to tell you, and you can do really cool stuff like bots. And people go, huh? They don't know what you're talking about, you know. So it's important that we've got to be careful in some of our language, and how do we bring them on the journey? The good thing about having something like the bots in there and adding applications into Teams is where you get your really good process change, and the really good reason as to why they might stay in Teams to do all their work. Because Teams with that pane of glass means I can stay here, and it's not like Skype where it's just really about communication and sharing your screen maybe. It's a collaboration technology as well. So you cannot do the same, program of work that you might have done for Skype, because you're including OneDrive, you're including Planner, you're including SharePoint, you're including meetings, you're including in documents and online and bots and then anything else that you might have included. There's all the connectors. Do they use Trello? Do they use what would come into their team? You could have a look at what technology could they plug in. Are they a marketing team? Do they use Hootsuite? And if they plugged Hootsuite in there and they do a tab, then it's got Twitter on it, a tab that's got Facebook, and a tab that's got Yammer because they're their communications team or something, and they can then just stay in that space to do their work. And if that's the case, they can save themselves 5 hours of work. The researchers found 5 hours of work in the week by working inside Teams, staying there and having your tools set up correctly. So we have a lot of times organisations will employ someone internally that's a bit of a business analyst and understands Office 365 and moves around and works with people and works with teams to help them to reinvigorate the business and re-innovate. And how do you change it? They are worth the income, because the amount of change that can come with someone like that to be able to help your organisation to re-engineer is really worth it. Okay? But they've got to be just not a business analyst. They need to have some of those 365 skills along with it. And they can then look at what bots do they need to potentially have even a flow, and a flow with automation. If you understand flow, automation, if this, then that. So if I have an email and it hits my mailbox, every single attachment automatically goes into my OneDrive for me, so that when I'm on the go, they say, I've sent you a mail, had this attachment, I can go straight to my OneDrive and there's all my attachments. And every time an invoice came in, it automatically processed and went all the way over to SharePoint and put it into the Teams file for all the invoices. If this, then that, automation. So these are the things that then go, that's cool, you mean I don't have to save every single invoice in the finance team to that folder, it will just do it all for me? Oh yeah. Do you know how much time that just saved me? Get your good scenarios, get your engineers. These are so when you want good adoption, apart from the change, you've got the process re-engineering that's got to come with it. Really important pieces. I'll move on. There are lots of team use cases. Now, I had one in particular where I came in and I was teaching the project, the PMO office, how to use Teams. And I go, okay, I just get called in occasionally. We just go in and do training, apart from, because I do the big adoption programs and full change. And I mean, comms strategy, risk analysis, sponsorship, documentation. There's lots that goes into a change program. It is an industry unto itself. So when it came to the Teams, I'm working with the PMO, taught them how to use Teams, ended up being crickets, absolute crickets. Why do you think the PMO didn't do anything in Teams at all?
Working on project.
They're actually out working on projects. So they're not working with each other. They're working over here with other people. There's no one in there. They really, as a team, did not have a use case for being in Microsoft Teams. Yeah. So you've got to have it and put it into context. So Microsoft have an awful lot of information to be able to support you on your journey around change. They've got libraries around adoption. They've got libraries when it comes to OneDrive adoption programs. For example, there's a whole library full of all just purely OneDrive adoption, or whatever the case, lots of them out there. Okay, so then a sales team scenario. So we've done a few of these, especially with some of the big changes that are going on in the media industry at the moment. And so sales is really important because there's been a real hit to the industry when it comes to the digital side, now to the paper print side, okay? So for a lot of these, and you're dealing with sales, when you're getting a scenario and you're thinking a little high level, it is, as someone in sales, I want to have a single version of the proposal I can access and edit in rather than emailing different versions around. So you've got one source of truth. I want to use it with Microsoft Teams. So I can store it somewhere, but I can also not only have a single version, but we can edit and co-author and collaborate together on a document. It gives them a reason to be in there, okay? But when do they know it's actually successful? It's when they can actually have conversations, turn around, and I can actually close more deals, because that is what it's all about for the sales guys. They want to get more deals faster, quicker, back out there, money, commission. What motivates the persona? So this is the scenario that went with the persona. Okay, so start to align them up in terms of good adoption. I often go, what does that behaviour in terms of exhibiting success look like? What do you want them to do? What is it? Where do you need them to be for it to be successful? And if your final quota is, we want to lift our sales for the organisation by 5%, if they're a multi-billion-dollar company and you take it up by even 2%, that can be big money. If it's a really small company and you're taking it up, we want to bring it up by 5%, it still can be big money for your organisation. And you might be doing it with a really good CRM solution because they can at least be a little bit more transparent when it comes to sales. Okay. So when we look at doing teams is only as good as the team that's working in it as well. Okay. We look at the behaviour that exhibits and what we need for a good team. When we're talking about adoption of culture change, we have to look at some of this in terms of what makes a successful team. Did you go into Microsoft Teams and have a good, clear goal? Okay. Are the right members actually assigned the right tasks when you're working in your teams? Is it team focused? Does it have clear leadership? What is the team size, and then what's optimal to be in teams? So you think about a high-performing team, these then get to be important components when you're collaborating, communicating, and you're using Office 365. So where does your cultural journey come on to get the right adoption? It kind of comes back around. We all talk about the technology, really cool technology. No, yeah, but this is the stuff that defines the way that we work. So in terms of teams, the recommended is how many is too many inside Microsoft Teams. So for example, if you were new to Teams, recommended is you might have 3 teams, 6 channels and 9 members. So now you've got teams where you can have thousands of people in a team. Really overwhelming, but that has to be used more for kind of an announcement, a bit of push-pull in terms of announcement. It's an overarching, you might then have a social group type thing. You're not going to have everyone. We have programs where there's 300 people in a channel. That can be great, but can be very noisy. So you've got to look at, well, what's going to be the best use case, okay, and help people. So this then becomes, once you start to get it expert advanced, and we need to teach them to be able to favourite and unfavourite. I mean, the good thing is with Microsoft Teams at the moment, if you aren't using it for 45 days now, it pushes it down the list in priority. So it keeps you focused in the team. So it's going to do that very soon in terms of drop down in priority. I'll often say with a team, when I'm working with them and I come in and we do a team training piece, they're going, oh, but now we've got to work across, we've got Outlook Mail, we've got Microsoft Teams, we've got Yammer going on, and we've got our SharePoint site, and they don't know which they should be using then. Okay? And it usually comes down to there's a preference that Microsoft provide for different preferences, and each topic of conversation layers, each topic of technology in terms of its workload kind of takes it up a little bit of a level in terms of each one. Goes something new, something bigger and new on top of the other. A to-do list compared to planner, compared to project online, compared to project, okay, kind of going up on top of each other. Which one you would use depends on the process, depends on what you're trying to do to then go which one fits right for you. Okay. So when we go, okay, and I bring a team in, I go, it's all very well and good, I'm going to teach you teams, but what does it look like for you to collaborate as a team? You need a good collaboration contract. You got to have agreements. You agree that you are going to make sure you put your documents into the SharePoint, the sites in Microsoft Teams. You agree that you are going to send links and you're not going to send attachments. You agree in terms of the names that you're going to try and make sure that you do this. You agree that when you're going to do tasks for your team, you're going to put them into Planner so everyone has visibility over them and you can work together in Planner. You agree, and then if it didn't quite work, come back around to it. As a team, look at it again and again and go, that didn't quite work, what should we do? There's new technology, do we want to trial it? Oh, look, that didn't work, let's fall back. But you've got to be willing to at least try something as part of that process. So we've got to have agreement, and that's where the mess comes in. And the usage adoption is not quite as high, because what happens is they'll go, 3/4 have fallen back to email. Some of us are over in Teams. They're not communicating. So now I'm doing it in Teams and I'm sending an email. Yeah. So, working with the, ABC, for example, they had 40% of their work was in mail and 2% was in Teams. We swapped it 2% in mail and 40% in Teams. So you can see a significant saving in terms of the way that you work. So what happens is we often hand over Teams and then we go, off you go. It's really exciting. Woohoo. And they're still struggling on all their mailbox and they don't know how to deal with the cloud and, got this new technology and someone had really enjoyed it, said it was great. The rest of them are not ready. So, yes, it can have a really good natural inherent adoption to it because it can save time and people can see the value, but somewhere you've got to start a little slower. They say that that whole go slow to go fast, the whole army, they've got the whole army's logo, defence, I should say, logo, where they're pulling a gun apart. Okay, they kind of do it slowly and they put it back together. And then they do it again and put it back together and again and back together. And eventually they just go, done, back together. Okay, so at some point in an organisation for productivity, you're going to have to slow down and stop, maybe spend a couple of hours doing training to speed up. So, because I get a lot of people go, we can't take our whole organisation for 2 hours or 3 hours out of the business. Or we're running 6 sessions, so therefore there's 6 hours of scenario-based training. We don't want to wipe out 6 hours of our organisation. It's like, but that 6 hours might have just saved you, for a couple of people, 21,500 productivity hours. Go slow to go fast. Okay. So therefore, that true power of Office 365 really lies in terms of the changing the way that actual people work. And ultimately, it's up to you and not the technology. So a change journey has to have good change around it. It's not enough to forget about it. It's not enough to leave it behind. Too many projects just jump straight to the technology and a little bit of training, and then the message was lost. The training was misaligned. It wasn't communicated well. They didn't get senior leadership buy-in. That takes change management. There was not good comms around it. People are all a little confused. They don't even know, why am I coming into this training session? Do you know how many times I've had people go, I don't know why I'm here. I just got told I had to go on it. Have you ever had that? Where you've even walked into a room and go, I don't know why I'm here. It is not good communication. That takes a good, solid change effort. So most of the programs that I do, whether it's small, from the smaller, it's around about 6 weeks. Full-time change adoption program, 6 weeks minimum. And that's just to get it started. You might have a couple of days, if you're lucky, a couple of days of training in there, but you're looking at 8 weeks to include then the training on the other side of it in terms of a program. But does adoption ever stop? Does change really ever stop? Does comms or training ever really stop? Certainly not in this technology. So you have to have a good strategy to be able to move you forward in future. Because if you don't, in 6 months when you've just finished rolling out OneDrive and you've got people going, what's this? What's that? Help desk. I've just done a flow and I think it's broken. Hang on a second. It's just now tweeted out 500 tweets because I said automatically send a tweet every time Office sent a tweet. Been there. Seriously, you don't arm them and you don't arm them fast enough, you're going to lose the opportunity to bring them on the journey. Because if I come back in and I've come in, it's usually even 6 months later, they go, we rolled it out, they aren't really using it. And then the ones that have, the gates are kind of bolted and we didn't have any governance around Teams. We had no guidance and we kind of haven't said you couldn't do that. So we've had Teams created with the CEO's name as a part of the, so all of a sudden there's all emails coming in because it's picked up in the GAL as the CEO's name because it's automatically an email address. So the CEO all of a sudden has got a team and emails and a notification, something coming out from the CEOs, because you can reply from Teams directly in terms of the emails, and then emails are going out to the organisation from the CEO name. And oh yeah, what is your governance? Okay, and have all those things lined up long before you talk to the user, but then continue on that journey. Get it aligned. That's all change. It's all comms. It's all adoption. We don't want to leave our users behind. And if that gate has bolted, the horse has bolted from the gate, I should say, it's really hard to claw it back. Because what happens is all of a sudden you start going, we're going to turn this off, we're going to turn that off, we're going to, okay, and then they'll scream blue murder, or it was broken, and then they go, it doesn't work. And it's really hard to get them back in again to go, I need you to now do it this way. And they're going, well, it didn't work. I'm not going to use it. I've had them in my classroom. They literally are pens down. I'm not going to do it. It didn't work for me. Let me show you. Nah. I go, okay, then I would ask them, maybe you respectfully would like to actually leave so that we can move on if you really don't wish to be here. We are not forcing you to actually be in this program. So, and I make that very clear. If you have got them coming in and doing training, then have something around respect, tolerance, understanding as a slide. I would highly recommend it, because in this day and age, we've all become way too short-tempered and not as great with change. So when we then start to have a look at some of the resources that are out there, there's so much. There's Success with Teams. You've got the fast track side. Go to the Office roadmap. The user voice. So if you go in and you say there's a feature that you want, go find it in the Microsoft user voice. If it's the Outlook or Flow or whatever, you've got the user voice there. You can go find and see it. That feature that you want is already being listed. You can go vote on it. In a lot of the product teams, if there's 5 people that vote, they start to actually look at it. And they go, should we design that? And hence why we get up to 30 odd updates potentially in a month, because they go away and they start to design these things. So if there's something you want to see, go and ask them for it. Okay. There are all my details. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for joining us at the IT Pro community. I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Microsoft and Sorrison, your System Center experts. If you want to see more, subscribe to our channel and click the bell to get notified when we put up new content. And feel free to leave your suggestions for future events in the comments below. For more details on upcoming events or to join us live at our next meeting, join our meetup community at the link provided.